Hi Zala, how are you?
Hi, Karen. I'm doing well. Thank you. It's nice to meet you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Great to see you. So, can you tell me a little bit about some of your experiences in Afghanistan and that have maybe shaped your perspective and informed what you've put together for the chapter?
My experience with sports specifically has been very, very interesting. I think that because of the a lot of external circumstances in the country, no matter what you are involved in, the story is going to be very interesting because of the contributing factors that shapes those stories that are in Afghanistan for a lot of different reasons. So, which is why in this book I specifically focus on my cycling journey through Afghanistan. I talk a little bit about my experience in working with media outlets in the country, my story is a bit of a parallel between where Afghanistan was, how Afghanistan developed over the past 20 years, and what changed it toward the end. Right now, I study at Yale and US College. I major in chemistry with a minor in philosophy, but I continue to be involved with cycling and other activities that I was doing back in Afghanistan. I would love to learn more about how you got involved in the book and your background and experiences as well.
My first idea was to do something about language and gender bias in the language that we use. There's a lot of debate about whether the language we use shapes the culture around us or what impact culture has on the language that we use. And actually, I think they're both really closely linked and they actually inform each other. We're conditioned from a really young age from some of the language that we use, the language that we're exposed to, the way that we talk to, and that kind of follows us all the way through into adulthood. And that we've been brought up to think that we don't even notice that we're using biased or gendered language. So, the really obvious examples like, the default for a person is always he or him as opposed to she or like a gender neutral they. We're looking for equity and equality as women. Sometimes actually the words we're using ourselves, we need to take a look at and say, actually, we are using inherently gendered, biased language. And that's really difficult for us to unpick sometimes unless we have that kind of awareness. Thinking about some of the challenges that you've overcome over the last few years, like where do you find that strength and that motivation? Where does it come from?
When you are raised in an environment where the idea of a girl riding a bicycle is a nightmare to the majority of people around you. Throughout the cycling journey, I've had my teammates being attacked to the extent where some of them are currently living with lifelong injuries. And this is only because they wanted to ride a bicycle and they wanted to represent Afghanistan and raise the flag of Afghanistan in international competitions. I was personally physically attacked one time. It was quite a horrific experience. And it was at that point that I was like, I cannot do this anymore. But thankfully, I have a mother who is courageous and who has been involved in sports when she was at my age. So she encouraged me a lot to continue to keep going. So when I make a comparison, we could actually see a big impact that we had made on the other girls in the society. I have pictures in the book from the beginning of when we started cycling, and then a few years later when girls are using bicycles to go to work, to go to school, to just cycle around the country. So I think seeing that impact and having that impact recognized by many others has also been something that's been quite encouraging.
Gone through so much adversity, you've pushed on, you've been encouraged by people like your mother, and then to see other people that you've inspired as well, that must make you really proud.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. We've not only been advocates for equity and equality and women's rights, but we've also done pretty good in terms of competing internationally. And our team got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2016. So I count myself incredibly privileged and lucky too. What are some of the most subtle ways that gender bias is reinforced through language, in your opinion?
I suppose that there are lots of kind of really subtle things in language that we don't necessarily think about. So there are words that exist to describe men that we don't have a female equivalent for. So, we think about eligible bachelors, for instance, there isn't a female equivalent to that apart from maybe spinster, which has a lot of really negative connotations with it of kind of an older woman who's single as opposed to kind of eligible bachelors who are eligible and therefore it's kind of a positive thing. I think there's lots of ways that language and culture kind of inform the way that we think, that our expectations, and I think ultimately, a lot of the time we hold women to a different standard than we hold men to. So, we criticize them for, how they look and how they talk. We might say that women are, as a really quick example in the workplace, men who will be described as being assertive or direct or confident, a woman displaying those same traits will often be labelled as being bossy, for instance. And actually, what they're doing is they're just displaying exactly the same traits as a man, but they're held to a different standard. And the language that we use to describe them is actually very different, and it's biased in terms of the connotations that it has. So I think some of these things are so subtle, they follow us all the way from childhood, where we're kind of conditioned to think about people in a certain way or use language in a certain way, and that carries right through.
That is really amazing. I really look forward to reading your book, and hopefully to also talking to you more about this, because this seems like such a crucial topic, especially in the world today.
Thank you, and it's been fantastic to talk to you today, Zala.